This is gonna be a long one. God bless America. Hello everybody, I am the Talk Radio Protege, and this is the Protege Program. Welcome back from the weekend. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope that you enjoy this video, and when we get to the end, leave a like and subscribe. So, if you don't know who this individual right here is, count your lucky stars. That's about all that there is to say there. If you decide to track this video down on YouTube, the first thing that you'll notice is that comments are disabled and the likes and dislike ratio are disabled. So we've definitely got us a strong, confident woman here that's got better things to do with her time than listen to people that don't agree with her. Now, let's get into this piece of work.
Are you pregnant? Having a crisis? Whatever you do, don't visit a crisis pregnancy center. It's a trap.
I realize this is the hook, so I'm willing to pretty much let this one go, but I'm gonna need some context for this claim right here, PDQ, or it's going to get bad.
Imagine this. Your father has a heart attack, and you're physically blocked from taking him to the emergency room.
Now, hold on. How are pregnancies and heart attacks the same? As far as I know, now, if the analogy goes like you might think it would go, then the illness doesn't really matter. Whether or not it's a heart attack doesn't matter. But, let me just show you how this goes.
Because a barrel of monkeys is jumping around the sidewalk yelling that heart attacks are natural and beautiful.
Now, if she just stopped...
Justifiably pissed off, right?
Right there, then this would be fine. She could talk about, we don't need activism in hospitals. We don't need activism on the way to a hospital because that's not cool. It's not cool to do activism at a hospital. But we're talking about pregnancy here. So, of course she's not going to stop.
Now imagine your father is persuaded to skip the ER and go to a crisis heart center that dangles bogus alternative heart attack options in appointment after appointment, and he misses the chance to have a life-saving bypass.
Now, how is a heart attack like a pregnancy? Take a few minutes to figure it out, and while I explain it in this way. A heart attack is like a bomb. As soon as you know that a heart attack is happening, you have a limited amount of time to get to a hospital before you're going to die. So it'd be like if you had a bomb and you needed to take it to the police station to have it defused. But on your way to the police station, you had to walk past Black Lives Matter, and they were screaming about how the police are racist pigs, and they were trying to tell you not to take the bomb to a police station, and then it explodes and kills everyone. Now, how is pregnancy like a bomb? How is pregnancy like a heart attack? You'll figure it out. We'll get into some more of this video, and you'll figure it out, and you'll realize what exactly is going on here.
Operation. You probably can't imagine that because we wouldn't allow it.
Now, a pregnancy is not a time bomb. Therefore, it's okay to take a little bit longer to get to the hospital if you're pregnant. If you're delivering, a different story, but we're not talking about delivery here. We're just talking about, you realize that you're pregnant, so you're headed to the hospital, and you're assailed by activists that want you to go and do one thing or the other, right? There's no time bomb here. So I'm having a hard time following the analogy, it's hard for me to give you my blind reaction to this video, having watched it and taken notes. So I'm trying to have it both ways, and I'm not. I'm obviously not succeeding. Watching this the first time, I couldn't follow this analogy because a pregnancy is not a time bomb. We're comparing apples and oranges here. It's going to become clear very soon, though. Just hang on with me.
There's a very good reason that we don't allow just any yahoo off the street to throw up crisis medical centers for heart disease, diabetes, or cancer, because it would be medically and ethically disastrous, and also totally bonkers.
She still hasn't established how a pregnancy is like a bomb for the non-feminazis that, you know, understand that a pregnancy is generally something good. Now, obviously, the way that she's been talking about a pregnancy, comparing it to a heart attack, using air quotes for beautiful and natural, she obviously thinks that pregnancies are not good. So, again, just thinking like a normal person here, the objective of a crisis heart attack, you know, heart attack facility would be the opposite of the hospital. You go, if you're having a heart attack, you go to the hospital so that you don't die as a result of your heart attack. Whereas if you were going to go to a crisis heart attack center and they would persuade you to let the heart attack run its course, then you would die. You know, we're talking about, you know, a person that's pregnant, and she's talking against crisis pregnancy centers. And if you, the title of the video is that crisis pregnancy centers make sure that you deliver. So she's shilling for abortion. And the purpose of a crisis pregnancy center is to make sure that the baby doesn't die. So it would be the opposite of a crisis heart center. So the analogy is really not working out here if you're just thinking about this as a normal person. So just because it makes sense when you're thinking about it doesn't mean it's going to make sense when you play it through. So let's keep rolling. Maybe it will make sense.
And yet, in thousands of unregulated facilities all across America, taxpayer-funded...
Stop the tape! Taxpayer-funded and unregulated do not go in the same sentence. Unless you're going to say, taxpayer-funded activities will never be unregulated. The federal government does not give away taxpayer dollars with no strings attached. It's just not reality. This is... Just think about this for a moment. It's a total fabrication. Also, since we're shilling for abortion with this video, I'm going to assume that you have no problem with taxpayer dollars going to abortion clinics, while at the same time you have while at the same time you do have a problem with taxpayer dollars going to these crisis pregnancy centers, whose objective is ostensibly to prevent an abortion. Do you see the mental pretzel that you've twisted yourself into?
Religious groups are tricking people into carrying pregnancies to term against their will at so-called crisis pregnancy centers.
I have a question. How do you trick someone into carrying a pregnancy to term against their will? I mean, you have 9 months. Well, okay. In the case where abortion is not allowed after a certain point, you have, let's say 21 weeks. You have 21 weeks to realize that you're carrying a baby and that you don't want, and that you want to have an abortion. So if someone manages to trick you in the early stage of your pregnancy, exactly how long are you going to go before you realize that you've been tricked and that you're carrying this abortion to term? You know, if the objective is to prevent the abortion, how is it tricking you to make you carry the abortion to term? I'm not understanding how the trickery is taking place.
Sounds like an outrageous conspiracy theory, doesn't it?
That it's a conspiracy, that a religious group who believes that unborn babies are alive and created by God would want those babies to be delivered and not aborted. I fail to see how that's a conspiracy theory. Also, I fail to see how religious institutions become taxpayer funded. But that's none of my business, I suppose. Let's move on.
But this isn't a dispatch from an alternative timeline where Handmaid's Tale is this close to becoming a reality.
Is she trying to throw shade at alternative media? Yeah, I feel like I'm a part of alternative media and I almost didn't catch that.
If you're pregnant or just seeking family planning advice, don't be fooled if someone offers you a free medical consultation at one of these places. Their names might be benign, but the mission of these organizations is anything but.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I just thought of this. Are you telling me that a crisis pregnancy center whose stated objective is to prevent an abortion is a malicious entity? Are you I found the link. It's in the notes. It's coming up later in the video, but I found the link even before my noted point. We have a confirmed OG feminazi on our hands. Not the newfangled feminazi, the feminazi term that's been co-opted and is applied more liberally than it was originally intended. We have an OG wants to maximize the number of abortions in the world feminazi. This just struck me. This, oh my gosh. Again, count your blessings if you don't know who this person is. We have a person on our hands who believes it is malicious to try and talk a woman out of getting an abortion. Oh my gosh. I'm more brilliant than I even realize sometimes.
Crisis pregnancy centers, or CPCs, are funded by rabid anti-choice bigots. The agenda? Prevent...
And of course, being anti-choice makes you a bigot. Or being a religious person makes you a bigot. And again...
people from exercising their legal and moral right to determine whether a pregnancy is right for them. Now, if you...
She talks like trying to talk someone out of getting an abortion is an immoral thing to do. Kind of like trying to talk someone out of committing suicide would be an immoral thing to do. And here you can understand my analogy. The resultant abortion is the termination of a life. Suicide is the termination of a life. The result of suicide is the termination of a life. You can at least see how those compare. I would like to think that I'm better at crafting analogies than Miss Sarkeesian here is. If it's immoral to talk someone out of having an abortion, then it's also immoral to talk someone out of committing suicide. It would also be immoral to talk someone out of committing murder. You know, I feel like I'm losing brain cells continuing to watch this, but I'm going to muscle through. We're going to get through this.
Into anti-choice propaganda, you might think there's an abortion clinic in every strip mall right next to the Target and the Starbucks. You know, grab a unicorn frappuccino, some dish soap, when you might as well get a quick abortion while you're running errands. But in reality, there are less than 600 facilities in this country where a pregnant person can terminate a pregnancy.
And she says that like it's a bad thing, but remember, this is an OG feminazi. Her objective is to maximize the number of abortions in the world. So just having, however many abortion clinics there are, there can never be enough abortions. There can never be enough abortion clinics. It can never be enough. We have to get the maximum number. So just the existence of
600 clinics to serve a country of over 300 million people.
Let
that sink in a minute. There are currently 6 states that have exactly one clinic to serve all of their residents. Contrast that with over 1,500 CPCs.
I kind of ran over a little bit of the statement there, so let me just restate just in case you missed it. She said there are 6 states in the union that have only one abortion clinic. So you would think that for a person that is probably into socialized healthcare, these crisis pregnancy centers that are trying to offer free pregnancy counseling would be a good thing. They're offering a service that a lot of people can't get to. But when you remember that we're listening to a feminazi, and OG wants to maximize the number of abortions in the world feminazi, you realize exactly just what I said moments ago. These crisis pregnancy centers are heresy. These crisis pregnancy pregnancy centers are sacrilege to the idea of maximizing abortions because the stated goal is minimizing the number of abortions or preventing abortions. They're automatically evil. Even if they were not trying to prevent people from having an abortion after they got pregnant, even if they were just offering pre-pregnancy family planning, counseling, this would be an affront to the feminazis because the result would be fewer abortions. Moving on.
CPC's work with the abortion protesters who harass patients.
We have to stop the tape again, full stop in the middle of a sentence. Because, if you don't know this woman, count your blessings, but at the same time, if you don't know this woman, you don't know what she means by the word harassment. To Miss Sarkeesian, a single insult, probably a single instance of disagreeing with her, is harassment. I would not be surprised. This is a woman who went to the UN and stated, saying you suck is harassment. I would not be surprised if she believes that saying to her, you are wrong, is harassment. So in this woman's mind, saying the words, please don't have an abortion, is harassment. Now, she shows you people lined up outside of a Planned Parenthood. And I can understand how this might be intimidating. I can understand how a person might perceive that this could be harassment. But this is coming from a person who thinks that one single instance of disagreeing with her is harassment. So keep that in mind as you ponder what she might mean by the word harassment.
Outside of bona fide women's health clinics, they claim to provide options and support. What they actually do is deny people access to licensed healthcare personnel and legitimate family.
Now, if these crisis pregnancy centers were grabbing people off the streets, tearing them away from hospitals, and dragging them to a CPC, as she's going to dub it, or she may have already dubbed it that, dragging them to one of these places, dragging them away from licensed people, that would legitimately be denying them from seeing those doctors. But if I walk up to a woman who is pregnant, and she's standing outside of a Planned Parenthood, and I say to her, have you considered not getting an abortion? And she asks me, and she says to me, I don't know what my options are. And I say to her, come with me and I will tell you. That's not denying her access. If they choose not to go to a licensed practitioner, that's not denying them access. That is actually their choice. They're not being denied anything. They're exercising their free will to do that thing. And you can understand, realizing that this is a feminazi, you can understand why she would say it this way. Why she would say that not having an abortion is not an option. Because to her, the only option is to have an abortion. To her, the option is maximize the number of abortions. So if a woman chooses not to have an abortion, she's being denied an option. She's not being offered a legitimate option because she's being denied an abortion.
And planning advice. If they do provide anything, it's lies about so-called abortion regret, abortion risks, and maybe a bag of diapers and a dollar store teddy bear.
Okay, we have to stop and talk about this. And this is where I wish I had had more time to do some research before I did this video. However, I can be generous and give you abortion regret. According to a study titled Decision Rightness and Emotional Responses to Abortion in the United States, 95% of women surveyed maintained that they had made the right decision up to 3 years after the procedure. So I can give that to you. I can give you that these crisis pregnancy clinics might not be able to offer women a bunch of free stuff if they decide not to have an abortion. What I cannot allow you to do is impugn the motives of people that want to share possible risks about abortion. And I was watching, actually, the person that gave me this gold mine. I was watching his video response to this, and he detailed what qualifies as a complication to a procedure. A complication to a procedure is only qualified as such if it happens very shortly after the procedure takes place. So if you go have an abortion and there's scars on your uterus that can cause a future pregnancy to go wrong, because if a baby implants on that scar, it's going to cause internal bleeding, it's going to cause your uterus to rip open. That doesn't count as a complication because the effects don't happen right after the abortion procedure. And I find it highly disingenuous that this woman would look into the camera and say that there are no legitimate complications that arise from abortion, given that a doctor, and granted this is only one doctor that I've only heard this from a few moments ago and wasn't able to properly research this complication. I can't abide the fact that she would look into the camera and say there are no complications with abortion, and anyone that would tell you otherwise is lying to you. I can't stand it. I can't allow that to be uncontested.
If they can't persuade a pregnant person to forego a termination using their tricksy non-facts, CPCs often resort to stalling. They make patients come back over and over again for medically dubious advice until an abortion is no longer an option.
So again, it's another common complaint of feminists, is that women have no agency when it comes to these things. If a woman is going to a crisis pregnancy center and she's having to go back over and over again to have more and more consultations, and she's getting bogged down and she's not getting an answer, maybe she even wants to have an abortion. She's decided that she's going to get an abortion, whether this clinic wants her to or not. What's to stop her from leaving one of these crisis clinics and going to an abortion clinic, going to a Planned Parenthood and having an abortion? See, that's the difference between feminism and anyone else, pretty much, is that anyone else believes that these women have the agency to walk away from this clinic, and feminism says that they don't have the strength of will to do so, so the clinics can't be allowed to exist. I don't know what's more insulting to my intelligence. Also, given that these clinics, their mission statement is to prevent an abortion, and their reasoning is that they believe an unborn baby is alive, can you at least understand that they perceive this as a life or death situation? Now, we're dealing with a feminazi here, so I can realistically see that she would not understand that they might think this is a life or death situation. But a reasonable person might look at that and say, okay, I understand. They at least believe this is a life or death situation, so I can at least understand why stalling might be considered a reasonable tactic.
Remember those 600 abortion clinics we mentioned? Well, only a handful perform late-term abortions after 21 weeks. So for many, what used to be a challenge, finding a facility within a reasonable distance to secure a pregnancy termination, is now an impossibility. CPCs pull the wool over the eyes of every pregnant person who walks through.
Considering you decided not to name a single complication that is fake, I tend to think that you're the one pulling the wool over people's eyes. You know, if all of the complications that these CPCs say happen because of abortion are not true and are total fabrications, you would think it would be easy to do a Google search and find a list of them and at least name one that is an actual that is not a complication, and debunk it real quick. You know, I get that this is a 4.5-minute video, and you probably don't have an attention span long enough to do more time than that. Why couldn't you name one? It makes me think that you're the one that's being disingenuous about things here.
Their doors. But the groups who are the most vulnerable are folks who don't have an abortion clinic anywhere near them. She says that these are the most vulnerable people. I happen to think that they're the most in need of these crisis pregnancy centers. If they can't get to an abortion clinic, maybe they need to go to a crisis pregnancy center. If they can't afford to go to a hospital to have these consultations, maybe they need to go to a free clinic where they can have a consultation done and be told about the options that they have. Of course, if you're a feminazi, anything that's not an abortion is not an option. who are misled into thinking that a CPC is a viable alternative. And
now, remember why she doesn't think that a CPC is a viable alternative. She's a confirmed feminazi. So a CPC stands against abortion, therefore they're not viable. It's totally ideologically driven.
Native English speakers for whom the American healthcare system can...
There's a pretty long gap before I have my notes written down again, so maybe I'll skip ahead. If I get bored, I'll skip ahead.
...a complicated mess to navigate. Well, actually, the American healthcare system is a complicated mess for everyone to navigate, but that's a whole other topic. These diabolical centers exploit the uncertainty and social pressure so many women feel about making the choice that's best for them, all in the name of a so-called pro-life movement that actually doesn't care a bit about the lives of the people they damage.
Now, whose lives are being damaged here? Who are you to say that giving birth to a child is going to damage someone's life? I have a visceral reaction in my stomach when I hear someone say that a baby is going to damage someone's life. You know, call me old-fashioned. I refuse to believe that the birth of a child would ever be a detriment to my lifestyle. And I live in a 2-bedroom apartment that I can barely afford. And I would rather die than see my wife dragged off to an abortion clinic because we can't afford a baby. Also, I totally went off on that without even getting to the point that I made a note of. There's this perception that the pro-life mindset doesn't care about people because we're not in favor of socialism. You know, despite the fact that the mission statement is to save the lives of unborn children, there's a group that is campaigning for less purposeful death, and there's a group that's campaigning for more purposeful death. And one of them is not feminazis. I'll let you decide which group that is.
This is a national health emergency. There's an anti-choice misinformation campaign, and it needs to be denounced every time it rears its head.
I can do that too. There's a national health emergency. People are being lied to about their options when it comes to family planning. And these lies need to be denounced. They need to be debunked every time they rear their ugly head. Yeah, I can make it sound scary too.
Visibly, vocally, and financially support pro-choice organizations like Planned Parenthood, NARAL, Lady Parts Justice League, and the National Network of Abortion Funds. Groups that offer real support and real options.
Remember what real options are. Real options are abortion. That's it. And real support is, of course, free stuff. Because, you know, CPCs don't have enough free stuff to give away, so they can't offer free support. But when you're given a free abortion, that's real support, and that's real options.
Get involved with your local pro-choice women's health centers and reproductive justice organizations.
Oh my God. Did this woman really equate the slaughter of unborn babies with justice? Did this woman really just say that maximizing abortion is reproductive justice? I can't do it anymore. I refuse. Oh my. There's not a lot that gets me fired up. And I feel like I immediately have to drop what I'm doing and talk about this. Abortion is one of those things. Call me old-fashioned. I don't care. I'm probably out of time. Yeah, I'm almost out of time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you'll leave a like and subscribe. And let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching once again. Have a wonderful evening. Until next time, God bless and good night.